Imagine this. You sit down to do some paperwork. Now imagine that paperwork takes 360 million hours to finish. That's the time US businesses spend on government forms. Every single year. It's a staggering number. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around. Let me put it another way. If one person started that job today, working non-stop, they wouldn't finish for over 41,000 years. They'd be filling out forms from the Stone Age until now. This isn't some made-up story. This is the reality of doing business in America. It's a mountain of red tape, a drain on time, on money, and on energy. This isn't just an annoyance, it's a crisis. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce calls it urgent. Their 2025 State of American Business Report lays it out in black and white. This isn't about politics, it's about practicality. It's about the real-world drag on the U.S. economy. Let's talk money. Big money. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce didn't just count the hours, they counted the dollars. Over the last 4 years, new federal regulations have cost the American economy an estimated $1.8 trillion. Let that sink in. $1.8 trillion. That number is so huge, it's almost meaningless. It's more than the entire economy of countries like Australia or Spain. This isn't just some academic figure. It's real money that could have been used for investment, research, higher wages, new factories. Instead, it was spent on compliance, on navigating the bureaucratic maze. Suzanne P. Clark, the president and CEO of the U.S. Chamber, put it bluntly, trickled down into Americans' lives and pocketbooks. Higher prices, lower wages, fewer jobs. She's not mincing words. She's sounding an alarm. This isn't a problem that stays in corporate boardrooms. It's a problem that ends up on your kitchen table. It affects the price of groceries, the size of your paycheck, the job opportunities available in your town. It's a direct hit on the American dream. If you want to see where the regulatory burden hits hardest, look at small businesses. These aren't giant corporations with armies of lawyers and compliance officers. These are the mom and pop shops on Main Street, the local contractors, the tech startups working out of a garage. For them, every new rule is a major hurdle. A report from the Chamber and MetLife found that 51% of small business owners say regulatory compliance is a barrier to their growth. That's more than half. They're telling us loud and clear that the red tape is strangling them. Think about a small bakery owner. Her passion is baking bread, not reading the Federal Register. But suddenly, a new rule comes down about food labeling, about employee scheduling, about waste disposal. She doesn't have a legal department to call. She has to figure it out herself, often late at night after a long day of work. She might have to buy new software. She might have to hire a consultant. She might have to change her entire process. All of that costs time and money she doesn't have. Maybe she decides not to hire that extra baker. Maybe she puts off buying that new oven. Maybe she just decides not to expand at all. That's how regulation kills growth, one small business at a time. This isn't a hypothetical. It's happening every day across the country. The cumulative effect of thousands of rules creates a system so complex that it's almost impossible for a small operator to be in full compliance. They live in constant fear of making a mistake, a fine, an audit. This creates a chilling effect. It discourages entrepreneurship. Where does that 1.8 trillion cost go? It doesn't just disappear. Businesses don't just absorb it, they pass it on. And who do they pass it on to? You, the consumer, the worker. That's why many experts call overregulation a stealth tax. It's a tax you pay without ever seeing it on a receipt. When a company's costs go up because of a new regulation, they have a few choices. They can raise the price of their products. They can hold back on wage increases. Or they can cut jobs. Often it's a combination of all three. Either way, the average person ends up paying the price. Representative August Pfluger from Texas put it perfectly. He said, "These regulations amount to a massive stealth tax paid by the American people. This isn't about supply and demand inflation. This is a direct cost imposed by government policy that lands on working families. New rule: trucking company must install expensive filters. That's a huge upfront cost. The company won't just eat that loss. it's going to raise its shipping rates. The factory pays more, charges the wholesaler more, who charges the retailer more, and you pay the final price. A business has revenue for supplies, rent, taxes, regulations. What's left pays employees and investments. When regulation costs rise, the wage slice shrinks. That might have been a 4% raise becomes only 2. Hiring 10 becomes hiring 5. This isn't greed, it's simple math. Money spent on compliance can't be spent on people. That's the stealth tax in action. Section 5. A look back. When America cut the red tape. This isn't just a theory. There's proof in U.S. history. There was a time when the U.S. decided to take a hard look at its rulebook and make some changes. From the 1970s through the 1990s, America went through a period of significant deregulation. This wasn't about getting rid of all rules. It was about getting rid of dumb, outdated, anti-competitive rules. Key sectors were opened up: transportation, telecommunications, energy. The results were nothing short of spectacular. Think about air travel. Before deregulation, airfares were set by the government. There was little competition, and flying was a luxury reserved for the wealthy. After the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978, new airlines jumped into the market, prices plummeted, and routes expanded. Suddenly, average families could afford to fly across the country to see their relatives. The breakup of the AT&T monopoly unleashed a wave of innovation that led directly to the cell phones and high-speed internet we rely on today. Competition drove prices down and quality up. Susan Dudley, a former top regulatory official at the Office of Management and Budget, points out that this wave of deregulation led to huge gains in economic growth and social welfare. It wasn't a reckless bonfire of the rules. It was smart, targeted pruning of the ones holding us back. The U.S. seems to have forgotten that lesson. The pendulum has swung back hard. The U.S. has gone from smart pruning to out-of-control growth. Section 6. How the world handles rules. China and India. When you look around the world, every country struggles with regulation, but they all handle it differently. Take China. They have a model of very strong state control. The government isn't afraid to use a heavy hand. They have cracked down hard. Big tech, private education, they can change the rules of the game overnight, creating massive uncertainty for businesses. It's a system where the state's goals come first. At the same time, China uses regulation to pick winners: clean energy, artificial intelligence, semiconductors. They clear the path for favored sectors and put up roadblocks for others. This top-down approach can mobilize resources quickly, but it stifles competition, limits consumer choice, and can lead to huge malinvestments when the government picks the wrong horse. It's a model of control, not organic, market-driven growth. Now look at India. It's a completely different picture. India has a huge, vibrant small business sector, but these businesses are drowning in red tape. A typical Indian MSME has to deal with over 1,450 different regulations every year. For a small manufacturing firm, compliance can be as high as 17 lakh rupees, or about $20,000. It's a system that seems designed to keep small businesses small. To their credit, leaders are decriminalizing minor offenses, digitizing compliance, and creating single-window systems. But the progress is slow. The culture of bureaucracy is deeply entrenched. For millions, the rules are still a slow, frustrating barrier to success. Then you have Europe. The European Union is known for setting very high regulatory standards, especially on data privacy and the environment. Think of the GDPR, the Big Data Privacy Law, or REACH, the complex chemical safety regulation. These rules protect citizens and the planet, and in many ways, they do. But they also create a huge barrier to entry, raising costs so high that small firms or non-EU companies struggle to compete. The EU tries to simplify and assess impact, but with 27 countries, change is slow and political. Once rules are on the books, they're hard to remove. The machine tends to add more rules, not take them away, creating a very stable but very rigid environment. Looking at the broader BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, You see another problem: regulatory quality and enforcement. Often it's not just too many rules, it's poorly written, contradictory, or unevenly enforced rules. Corruption can be a major issue. The interpretation of a rule might depend on who you know or how much you're willing to pay. Break the rules and risk consequences, or drown in red tape. This unpredictability is poison for business. Investment needs a stable, predictable environment. If you don't know what the rules will be, you won't risk capital. Good regulation isn't just writing better rules. It's building honest, effective, trustworthy institutions to enforce them fairly. Without that, the rules are just words on a page. This isn't just about anecdotes and stories. There's hard data to back this up. OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, a group of mostly wealthy countries. They studied what happens when you open up key markets. Sector, telecom. Sector, energy. Sector, transport. The results were clear. Labor productivity rose 5%. Value added rose 6%. Jobs increased 2%. These are meaningful gains for the whole economy. The Heritage Foundation, conservative think tank. Their model, Reg Data. Pause new regs growth. GDP plus 1.8%. Consumer prices down 5.7% over time. Short term, inflation down 0.6 percentage points. Stopping the bleeding could make things cheaper and fight inflation. Not arguing for no rules, that would be chaos. It's an argument for smarter, deliberate rules. Economists, find growth-maximizing regulation. Sweet spot fixes market failures, pollution. Sweet spot fixes market failures, monopolies. Porter hypothesis, well-designed environmental rules can spur innovation. Rule traits, clear, stable, focused on outcomes, like actually reducing pollution. The current flood is complex, ever-changing, and process-focused. The data says we are losing growth, losing jobs, losing purchasing power. So if the problem is clear, what's the solution? The good news is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are practical, proven tools governments use to make regulations smarter, leaner, more effective. These aren't radical ideas, just common sense good governance. The first and most powerful tool is the sunset clause. Make every new regulation automatically expire after 5 or 7 years, unless lawmakers vote to renew it. That forces regular review. Another great tool is the regulatory sandbox, especially for fintech and artificial intelligence. Create a safe space to test new products without old rules. Regulators watch, learn, design tailored rules. Test and learn. Don't ban first. Before any new rule, require a rigorous impact assessment. Do the math. Costs for businesses and consumers? Benefits? Are they worth it? Make it serious, independent, transparent. Let the public judge. One size does not fit all. A minor inconvenience for a giant company could be a death sentence for a small business. That's why we need scaled compliance. Simpler forms, fewer reporting requirements, longer timelines to comply. This isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about recognizing limited capacity. Sunset clauses, sandboxes, impact assessments, scaled compliance. The building blocks of a modern 21st century regulatory system. So where do we go from here? Can we get back on track? The U.S. Chamber believes we can. They argue America can return to 3% plus growth if we get serious about smart regulatory reform. This doesn't mean tearing down the whole system. It means modernizing it, pruning rules that are old, duplicative, just plain stupid. Use technology to digitize compliance and slash those 360 million hours of paperwork. Rebalance the scales so innovation and growth are valued as much as regulation. This is not a partisan issue, it's a practical one. The U.S. can keep existing environmental protections, workplace safety rules, and fair market standards. Nobody wants dirty water or unsafe jobs, but those goals can be achieved more smartly. Make permitting faster and predictable. Give owners digital dashboards of applicable rules. Make agencies talk to each other and avoid conflicts. These steps reduce hidden costs and save time. For every worker, every consumer, every family. The stakes are real. Overregulation lowers wages, raises prices, limits opportunities. For the nation, it's a $1.8 trillion anchor. Policymakers must champion smart reform. Business leaders should help design better rules. Citizens should demand a government that works for them.